Hi guys, Beth here, aka Mediagirl94. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another favourites or top list of 2023. If you haven't already read the title, today I'm sharing with you guys my favourite Nintendo Switch games of 2023. Now, these lists are going to be very biased, they're also very self-explanatory. I'm not really basing this list on playtime because if I did, spoiler alert, Tears of the Kingdom would be a little bit higher. If you played the game, you know you can easily sink hours into that game. I've decided to base this list on games that I actually had fun with. There are pros, there are cons, but there is a reason each game made it in. 2023 have been an interesting year for like the Nintendo Switch. You can definitely tell it's coming to the end of like its life cycle, but then they keep throwing on games where you go, okay, they are keeping this alive and I am all for it. In the comments below, if you guys also play the Nintendo Switch, I would love to hear, some of your favourite games in the comments below. Before we begin, if you'd like to support me and the channel in the future, you can by clicking a like to show me some love. You can click subscribe and tap that bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. Enough rambling, let's just start talking about my favourite Switch games of 2023. First game I want to talk about is Fae Farm, and I know this is like a very controversial like farming sim because there was so much hype surrounding this game in like the direct it was in, and then it kind of came out and people kind of like scratched their heads, myself included. I'm going to show my age now, I am a massive farming sim nerd. I've been playing since, like Harvest Moon on like the Game Boy Color. I've then continued with like, Story of Seasons, Rune Factory, Stardew Valley. I am a sucker. All you have to do is like farming and I am there. I love me a cozy game. And I feel like what intrigued a lot of people, myself included, what did make the game fun was the different take on like the combat and then also the farming, because you had your farm, but then like you could use like magic to like make your crops grow, you could change your crops. You also then had like different like when you upgraded your tools, they got better, but there was kind of like a bit of like a magical like fairy twist to it. The combat, self-explanatory, you go into a mine and you mine things and you kill some monsters in the process. But what I enjoyed was actually I really liked the story, how, when you got down to like a certain level in like the mine, you had to face like a boss, or you went to like other like towns, like locations, and you got to face off against, like those bosses. Like for example, I'm not going to spoil the game, but like when you first start the game, the island is surrounded by whirlpools, and it's kind of how you get on the island in the first place. But once you beat the first boss, the whirlpools go away. So it's kind of like all these things that are happening, and then you beat the boss and things go back to normal. It was fun. Like I said, I am a sucker. Farm maintenance, farm simulation, building things. But there is a big con to this game, and that was like the NPCs and the love interest, because it felt like a lot of effort went into the story and the mechanics, but then you could literally walk around the market square, talk to all the vendors, and there was no unique dialogue. They all repeated the exact same phrases. I actually didn't get married in this game because I was like, I am not invested in any of like these marriage options, because even like the candidates for love weren't that interesting. They didn't really have unique dialogue, and well, that's where I would have loved Fae Farm, to see an improvement. I do know that they have announced DLC for the game. However, because I didn't buy the deluxe version, it is paid DLC, so I'm unsure if I'm going to buy the DLC. But if you want to ignore like the love interest, and if you're okay with like bland NPCs, but you want like a fun like farming experience and like combat system, then I would highly recommend checking out Fae Farm. I had a lot of fun with it, despite some of its flaws. Up next is Fashion Dreamer. Now, guys, I'm going to hold my hands up now and say I am a massive fan of like the style boutique games, which are on the DS and the 3DS. I own all of them. I have played them multiple times, And I was one of those rabid fans that was kind of like, why haven't we got like a port on the Switch or like another style boutique? And so when Fashion Dreamer was teased at a direct, everyone was like, oh, are we finally getting like a style boutique? Right, we didn't get a style boutique because there is really no story. There is no story. There's no, you have to put on fashion shows, you have to raise the profile of your shop. You don't even own a shop. You literally want to become like an influencer. You go around, dress people up, take some photos, you know, your like followers go up and you go up the ranks, and that helps you unlock. You can customize clothes which then other players can wear, and if players around the world do wear your clothes, there is like a rating or like a ranking system where it's like, oh, you want to get in like the top. So there was like enough intrigue about it that was fun because I do like a good dress up game. However, it did miss out on the story element, which is what I loved about the style boutique games. But yeah, the reason it made it into my favourite games because even though it didn't have a story, I've got to give props to like the online, because oh my gosh, like getting to like interact with people from like around the world, getting them to make me outfits, me making them outfits, it was just a good time. And even though I have no fashion sense, Fashion Dreamer, whenever these style games come out, I like to think of myself as like a stylist, but it was fun. Would I have liked a story? Yes. But, you know, I can look past that because it was a decent dress-up game. There were lots of customization options. They really went all in on the dress-up factor, maybe hoping people would forget that there was, like, really no story apart from climbing the popularity ranks. But yeah, if you want a fun dress-up game, then I recommend Fashion Dreamer. The next game is Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. I know what you guys are thinking, Beth, didn't this only come out, like, the 1st of December? Yes, it is. But, you know, the reason it's made it onto, like, my favourite games list, because, oh my gosh, this game came out of the blue. It was kind of like with, like, the other two games, like Fae Farm and Fashion Dreamer. When I saw the teaser, I was like, okay, Dragon Quest, doing something different. Dragon Quest is a very popular, like, RPG, JRPG franchise. It has been going years, and I've been really invested in, like, these little, like, spin-offs they've been doing. You know, we had the Dragon Quest, like, Treasure, and now we've got Monsters: The Dark Prince, and it's kind of like Pokemon meets Dragon Quest. It's all the Dragon Quest, like, enemies. They also introduced some really cute, fun enemies, like, oh my god, the corn on the cob. I was like, oh my god, I am in love. And, like, the whole point is you're a monster wrangler. You can't attack monsters, but you can recruit them, and then you can fight against other monsters in, like, arenas, and you can, like, combine monsters to make even stronger monsters. If you're a fan of the Dragon Quest, like, franchise and have played enough games, you will recognise a lot of the enemies, and you kind of get a bit of an ooh moment when it comes to it. But, like, if you're new to the game but you've played Pokemon, that's the best way I can explain it. And I loved all the characters. It's all voice acted. Yes, there are some... I'm not sure about the English voice actors. Like, I'm not sure if they were actually English or not, if they were, like, American, because there are some interesting takes on some English accents, and that was the same in, like, the last Dragon Quest game, including Treasures. I was like, okay, you've decided to set this world in England, and I'm like, you've got some very dodgy accents, but hey-ho, you just have to come to England yourself, and yeah, there are a lot of dodgy accents. But this was just, like, a fun game. And even though it hasn't been out that long as of the making of this video, I've put quite a few hours into it, like leveling up my team, making monsters. I'm always finding something new, and I really like the story. I love, like, the NPCs, I love the main character. This is a really fun, like, spin-off, and I'm kind of happy, like I've already said, that Dragon Quest are doing these spin-off games, which I would love to see them do more before, like, the next one comes out. It's kind of like Pokemon. You have, like, the mainline game, and then they release, like, Snap or Legends Arceus. So, yeah, Dragon Quest, Monsters, The Dark Prince, I highly recommend it. It is such a fun game. Super Mario RPG is a game that people went absolutely nuts for when, like, it was announced at, like, the Nintendo Direct. I watched so many reactions where people were like, oh my god, that was my childhood. I'm not that old, so, you know, I'd actually never heard of Super Mario RPG. Slapped myself on the wrist, I call myself an RPG fan. But as soon as they announced it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And I can see what people meant by how it kind of isn't the hardest RPG. It's kind of a little bit easy. But you know, oh my gosh, I love Mallow. He is my favourite. I will die for that boy, that little floofy boy. And everyone was surprised when it got remade, but I really have no previous attachments to the game, so I was going in with like fresh eyes, and I was like, yeah, it is a slightly easy RPG compared to others, but you know, I liked the story, I liked the bosses, you know. I was very surprised to find that it was like Nintendo and like Square Enix like had a baby, because people apparently never expected this game to get remade, but Nintendo were like, hey ho, here we go. But yeah, it was fun. I loved all like the little character interactions. I like the little dance they do on like the level up screen, like the ultimate moves. It did take me a bit, you know, to line up like to get like the combo attacks to do more damage. But you know, yeah, it was a good time. You know, it's not a particularly like long game, but you know, if you're a fan of like Super Mario, you're a fan of RPGs, and you want to give something a go, then I would highly recommend this. And I would definitely say this is more aimed towards like a younger demographic, where it's like not baby's first RPG, but kind of like if you want to get kids into RPGs, start them off with Super Mario RPG. Up next is Octopath Traveler 2. Now, this follows on from the success of Octopath Traveler, which no one expected. I was obsessed with Octopath Traveler like when it came out. I have put so many hours into that game. It did take me a while to complete like it, because you have like 7 characters and it's kind of like the same formula here. It feels though with like Octopath Traveler 2 that they took all the good elements of like the first game, but then dialed them up to like 11 in the second game, because you have 7 unique characters, they all have unique paths, storylines, and you're there like, okay, cool, it's like I'm playing the first one again, but the world just feels so much more like alive, like they've decided to push the boundaries more with this game. But yeah, what I love is the characters. There is more interaction between the characters in Octopath Traveler 2. It doesn't feel like the first game where they just join your party and like you kind of jump from one story like plot point to the other. There is interaction, and it kind of feels more like an RPG party, and you're kind of there like, okay, I'm kind of invested more in these characters. They introduced like a day and night feature where like characters had like different like traits and jobs depending if it was daytime or it was nighttime. This definitely helped with like combat, the story, the world building, 2D, HD, chef's kiss. I'm so happy that this is like a thing, and I cannot wait to see, you know, more with like these like models, because it's going to be so easy to do a lot of games in this style. But yeah, the music, the art style, the characters, the world building, the story, it was just so beautiful to play, and I was kind of like transported back to like when I played Octopath Traveler 1, and I was like, holy hell, this is an amazing game. And I got chills playing Octopath Traveler 2, which is why it made it into one of my favourite Switch games of 2023. It wouldn't be a favourite Switch games of 2023 without the legend itself, Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda. I decided to do that title different. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know why I butchered the title in my own unique way. I know some people are probably screaming, Beth, this should be higher, but this is not my top games, this is my favourite games. If we were going on playtime, Zelda would probably be like number 1, because it's a massive open world. If you've played it, it's very easy to sink hours in, you know, doing like the Korok missions, helping the guy build his signs, you know, just going around like killing like monsters. This is an amazing successor to Breath of the Wild, and I can understand why so many people were hyped about this game, because they took elements that worked in Breath of the Wild and just, like kind of Octopath Traveler 2, turned it up to 11 with like the sequel. You had the ground, you had the sky, you had the underworld. At this point I don't think anyone can spoil like the underworld bit, because the game's been out long enough. I haven't actually completed the game. I'm going to hold my hands up now, and I would probably say I'm about halfway through the story, because I've been distracted with all like the side quests. I am that person that when I play like open world games, I'm there like, oh, you want me to do this? Oh, I'm also going to do this, 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 this. Oh, I really should do the main story at some point. There is so many hours you can sink into this game. The art direction, the characters themselves, especially returning characters from, you know, Breath of the Wild. And then they've kind of like built on like new characters, and it's like familiar, but it's not familiar. So I would definitely, this is going to sound really weird as someone that was a massive Breath of the Wild fan, I feel like Tears of the Kingdom, the world alone has more people, it has more structures, it has more interaction, whereas Breath of the Wild, you could be like going through fields and you wouldn't see a single soul. But with Tears of the Kingdom, the world was a lot more populated, but hey ho, you know, this is after like the Calamity Ganon, so it's really hard not to spoil the story, but you know, the game's been out long enough. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom, I had so much fun, and I will complete the game at some point. The second to last game I want to talk about is Fire Emblem Engage. This came out at the very start of 2023, and I actually honestly wasn't expecting like another like Fire Emblem game after like Three Houses, but then you actually think that like Three Houses was like what, 2019, so technically yeah, we were due like another Fire Emblem game. I'm gonna hold my hands up now, and if you guys saw like my Switch and my games and how much hours I've put into games, if Animal Crossing hadn't come out, Fire Emblem Three Houses is my #1 most hours put into a game. I sunk over like 460 hours into the game, completed all the stories, married all my favourites, did the DLC, and I know people were really 50-50 on Fire Emblem Engage. And yes, I'll say now, you know, some of like the dialogue is a little bit cringe in the supports, but then you also get some like golden story moments where you just do not expect characters to say certain things. It's definitely, I would say, with like the emblems themselves, it is going for nostalgia. I haven't played a lot of like Fire Emblem games like pre like Awakening, so some of the characters I knew from like Fire Emblem Heroes, the mobile game, but it was very interesting, and I did go back and I actually did look up the characters and their games that they were in. But for me, what stands out the most, what made this game so fun and unique, was the fighting system. When you went into a battle, you actually had to think. You know, they brought back the weapon triangle. You know, it kind of felt like they focused more on like the dating sim story character lore in Three Houses, which is what people loved. But for me, the combat just wasn't a challenge in Three Houses. I could easily beat a map. But then Fire Emblem Engage, I actually had to think. I had to be tactical. I had to actually strategize. And I was like, oh, holy hell. I actually need to think some things through. So yes, they definitely, this game, character-wise, not the best character interactions. The story's not bad. The story starts off very slow. But when you hit a certain plot point, you go, oh my god, this is like a really good Fire Emblem game. But yeah, I love Three Houses and I will die on that game. But then it also cannot be compared to Engage because they are two completely different play styles. I had so much fun and I love the Fire Emblem games, so of course I'm going to keep playing them. Even if the character looks like toothpaste. Yes, we all know him and her, they look like toothpaste Aaliyah. But yeah, maybe Fire Emblem, whoever's in charge of character design, you might want to put a little bit more thought into like your protagonist, because after Byleth, Aaliyah, a little bit like, huh, you went a bit questionable. But like the world itself, like the characters, like the different like realms, the princes, like the royal families that you interact with, you get like a large roster of characters. And unlike Three Houses where you had to recruit people, each time you go to like a new realm, like 5 or 6 characters are like thrust upon you, and you kind of feel yourself like you kind of don't use characters from like early in the game because they give you better units. So probably if I play through like a second or a third time, I would try and do different character builds on some early characters, because some of the early characters I love, but by the end of the game I was playing the characters you got later on. So if you haven't given Engage a go because you are obsessed with Three Houses, then give it a go, because I think you'll be really surprised with like the battle. Yeah, Fire Emblem Engage, I love Three Houses, but Engage, oh, really close to being my favourite game of 2023, but another game takes that spot. And now, my favourite Switch game of 2023 was Persona 4 Golden. I know what you're thinking, Bev, this game came out years ago on like, what, like the PS, was this the one that was on like the Vita? It's been on Xbox, it's been on PlayStation, it's been on PC, but it's only recently been like, well, it was only ported to the Nintendo Switch, you know, at the start of this year. For me, Persona 4, coming off the back of Royal, which was the first like Persona game I actually got to play on the Switch. That's not counting like Tokyo Mirage, like the Fire Emblem game that came out. But for me, every time I told people, oh, I love RPGs, I love JRPGs, Persona 4 Golden was the one game people were like, you're gonna love this game, you're gonna love this game, you're gonna love this game, and well, yeah, I loved this game. Now, definitely coming off the back of Royal, there were some like there was definitely some graphic differences, but this game is old, and I had to kind of forget everything in Royal and kind of relearn like the Persona 4 like techniques. But you can see after playing Persona 4 the elements they like carried over to Royal, and also the same with like the Persona like 3, which was also ported to the Switch. You can see where they've taken elements of games and then kind of expanded on them, and then they keep expanding on them. I loved the world, I loved the characters. As much as like people find like Teddy really annoying, I have such a soft spot for like Teddy. Like I loved like Morgana, but Teddy? I love him so much, and I just want like a Teddy plushie because so cute, so adorable. Also, Persona games, very dark. I was told that the storyline was very dark. There's a TV channel. If you're on the TV channel, you kind of die. Bit of suicide. So if you're going into Persona games, they can be a little bit dark. And well, this game is no exception. But you know, just like getting used to like making like the personas, like putting the cards together, like the skill points, working on the bonds in order to make like cards stronger, to get better personas, so that you could kind of like carry through some of like the bosses. Oh my gosh, you had to do like a lot of grinding in this game compared to Persona 5 like Royal. There was a lot more grinding that went in, and it kind of felt like I was like, okay, at some points I was a little bit overwhelmed, but then I was drawn in by the story, by the characters, by the relationships, by the world itself, and I was like, okay, this is an amazing game. And it feels so weird that I'm considering this my favourite Switch game of 2023 because it's such an old game. But you know, that's sometimes the way the cookie crumbles, and those were just my favourite Switch games of 2023. So there we have it, guys and girls of the internet. Those were just my favourite Nintendo Switch games of 2023. I hope you guys learned something about me and, well, my taste in video games. As I mentioned in the introduction, in the comments below, I'd love to, you know, hear some of the games that you guys played this year. Did we play any of the same games? You know, are you willing to share how many hours you put into some of these games? Because honestly, whew, every time I go on like my Switch profile and I look at like my playtime in some of these games, I go, I never realised I had so much free time to put into some of these games. But yeah, it's been a really good year, and I cannot wait for the games that are coming out in 2024. And well, news on like the Switch 2. Fingers crossed, you know, we get some more information about that. But I have enough games, you know, that I haven't completed or I've put on the back burner for other games, you know, that I've got enough to tide me over. But yeah, let's wrap up this video before I continue to ramble. If you'd like to support me and the channel in the future, you can by clicking a like to show me some love. You can click subscribe and tap that bell to be notified when I upload on this channel. At the end of this video, you can check out my last 2 videos or playlist depending on what mood I'm in when I'm editing this. Until next time, I'm Beth, Mediagirl94, goodbye.